So if you practice meditation consistently over time, one of the things that should start to become evident is that when you identify with what's happening as a person, things get heavy. And when you identify with what's happening as a person, you naturally seek relief, you seek happiness, you seek pleasure, you seek peace. And over time, as you practice meditation, you're practicing non-duality, you're practicing not being there as a person, you're practicing being consciousness itself. And as you continue to learn and understand the nature of awareness, the nature of consciousness itself, and non-duality, it becomes apparent that what's happening and consciousness are one thing. This experience of non-duality, that consciousness and what's happening are one thing, is very liberating. It's literally the experience of nothing, of no one, of what they call in the teachings emptiness or the void. And the thing about it that is fulfilling and satisfying is that there's literally no suffering. When what's happening and you are the same thing, there's no one to suffer. It's just what's happening is happening. This is very counterintuitive. It's very unlike the way we normally operate. And so it's very difficult to understand it. It's better to simply practice with the intention of being it rather than understand it. The same thing is true with the business of self-knowledge. It's necessary in the beginning to come to a conceptual understanding of what it means to be yourself, to come to a conceptual understanding of what it means to be awareness itself. And so there's metaphors and there's analogies that are used. The common metaphor that's used often is the consciousness is like the screen that never changes. And what's happening is the image is on the screen, like a movie playing on the screen. And that's a preliminary understanding. But then as you develop a deeper understanding, it becomes possible to recognize that the screen and what plays on the screen are not two. And it's this non-duality that provides peace, that provides the end of suffering. Because if you're being what's happening, if you are what's happening, there is no distance from it to analyze it or interpret it. There is no distance from it to have thoughts about it being different. And of course, it's often said in the teaching that the source of suffering is the fact that when we separate ourselves, when we're in a dualistic state and we separate ourselves from what's happening, that part of what happens is that we're constantly evaluating it. Do I like it? Do I not like it? Am I happy? Am I not happy? Is it good? Is it bad? Do I want it or not want it? So one of the ways to practice this in your daily life is to pay attention to whenever you're having the experience that you don't like. It's whenever it's too something, I'm too tired, I'm too anxious, I'm too angry, And then see if when you're experiencing this, of course it's uncomfortable because you're identified with the experience. But the identification with the experience is that you, the person, is having the experience and you're uncomfortable. The person is uncomfortable. So when you notice that you're in some state of discomfort, some mood, see if you can, at that time, recognize that if, when you're noticing that you're in this uncomfortable state, or this angry state, or this anxious state, or this tired state, or this annoyed state, see if at that very moment, if you can notice that there is an awareness of that, and the awareness of that state, the awareness of that feeling, the awareness of that sensation is not the same as the sensation. The awareness of the sensation is not having the sensation. The awareness of the sensation is simply aware of the sensation. And then you can actually take the next step, right? And that is to actually allow the awareness of the sensation and the sensation to be the same thing. And when you allow the awareness of the sensation and the sensation to be the same thing, there's no one to have the sensation. There's no one to have the experience. You disappear. You literally disappear. And it's the absence of who you think you are that provides the opportunity to experience peace and happiness. It's the absence of who you think you are that allows that to happen. And you can experience this in meditation if you practice consistently. And if you deepen your understanding of what meditation is in terms of simply being present. And when you begin to when you begin to do a meditation practice, you're probably in a dualistic space. You're probably being dualistic. You know, you're identified with the body, you're identified with the thoughts, you're identified with time, you're identified with space. And so when you begin to do the meditation, that's why we have this phrase that we say, let go, letting go of the identity, letting go of the separation, the duality, and relaxing. Because the thing about it is that the experience of meditation, the experience of consciousness in its natural state is non-dual. And the reality is that you're actually always experiencing non-duality because it's the truth. You're actually always experiencing that what's happening is all there is because it's the truth. But we're conditioned to separate ourselves from it. We're conditioned to identify with thinking. And once that happens, once there is a subject and an object, then there is this sense of lacking, something's missing. And we set out to change it, to try and control it, to try and avoid it, to try and make it different. We do everything we can as a separate self, as a separate finite self, to try and experience that which is already happening. And so through the practice of meditation and through the practice of these teachings and learnings and understandings, we gradually begin to see that it's not necessary to change it. There's nothing to struggle with. There's nothing to cope with. There's nothing to make different. The natural state is non-dual. The natural state is the experience that's already occurring. So it's really a subtraction. It's really letting go of what's not happening, letting go of not being what you're not, letting go of the idea that we have been conditioned to believe is true, which is that there is separation when there is no separation. that there is this thinker when there is no thinker, that there is this person when there is no person. And that's why in a lot of teachings they say, freedom is not for you, it's from you. Freedom from this mistaken notion, this mistaken belief that we've believed into existence. And of course, the challenge of it all is that because humanity, most of humanity is living in the dream appears to not be a dream. The dream appears to be real. In fact, the dream appears not to be a dream, and the dream appears to be real, and reality appears to be a dream. Somebody who's really completely immersed in the dream of reality, that really believes 100% that time is real, believes 100% that they are their body, believes 100% that they think their thoughts, will react to what you would describe as reality as a dream. It's reversed. They say, you're dreaming, you're kidding yourself. What do you mean that you don't exist? This is so embedded in the brain. You know, I work with people, and you know yourselves here that this is so embedded in the brain, and this is so tattooed in your mind that you are your body and that you're this personality, that it's almost as if there's no way for you to express yourself otherwise. If you speak, you find yourself speaking as the person. And often when people understand the truth, they find themselves speaking as the person and saying, oh, I know I'm not really that, like correcting what they're saying as they're speaking. But it's not necessary to do that, because when you're speaking from the source of yourself, when you're speaking as the consciousness itself, that's obvious, even if you're speaking in a conventional manner, because obviously we have to speak in a conventional manner to communicate with one another. But when you listen to somebody speak, if you listen to a teacher like Rupert Spira, for example, or Eckhart Tolle, if you prefer him, or Mooji, any of these people, they will speak in conventional language. They will use the word I. But if you listen to the context in which they're saying it, it's obvious that they're using it as a convention. It's not who they consider themselves to be. So I really, want to encourage you to stay true to this possibility. Understand and accept the fact that you are right now experiencing non-duality. The mind has to continue to play a program to avoid that experience. And what we're doing when we're practicing meditation and learning these things is to allow that program to lose its hold on you so that you can experience the truth. Yeah. So if you're letting go of ego, are you the ego? But the point of the practice is that you are awake. Now, obviously, if you relax your body and you go into a state of dullness, where there's no alertness, right? There's no awake in that sense. You just go to sleep, right? That's something that part of the practice of meditation is to recognize where you're at, to recognize the state of awareness, right? So you could recognize the state of awareness and be completely relaxed. Your body can actually be more relaxed than it is when you're asleep, and you can be completely alert. This is just not ordinarily an experience that we have, right? But through meditation, part of what you're practicing is to learn that the body can be completely relaxed, and at the same time you can be completely alert and awake. is that if you stay with the practice and if you develop a deep understanding of what non-duality is, right? You can be in the middle of a carnival, but you are being the carnival and you're being the person at the carnival, but you're not separate from it. This is the experience that people call flowing, or being completely present. Because when you're aware and awake as the awareness that you are, and it's a non-dual experience, right? The person that you used to consider yourself to be is part of what's happening instead of you being separate from it. You see? The person you used to consider yourself to be is part of what's happening instead of being separate from it. And because it's part of what's happening, it naturally interacts with what's happening in an effortless manner. Right? These things are not necessarily easy to comprehend and to understand, but it is possible to get a sense of it, to get a sense of what it would be like to be free from being separate from what's happening and to actually be part of it, to be life itself happening. And the you that you used to think of yourself as separate from is now happening as life. It's still there, the body's still there, the person's still there, but you're not being that, you're experiencing everything. You're being everything at the same time. That's why you hear people say, that I experienced myself as everything. And so I really just want to keep encouraging you to stay true to this possibility. Stay true to this possibility. And if you continue to learn to refine what it is to meditate, and if you continue to maintain your interest in this and keep looking for where the pointing is pointing to, it's inevitable that you will have a non-dual experience. It's inevitable. So,
in this lifetime?
In this lifetime. As a matter of fact, not in this lifetime, not in any time, not in time. Not in time. In the eternal moment. Okay, have a good evening.